Welcome back, Defenders. Jake here. We're going to start today's video with an easy story, and then we're going to have to talk about a very difficult story. So the easy story, I'm pretty confident the United States has found the source of those leaked documents. Federal investigators are searching for the person who shared classified U.S. intelligence revealing government secrets about the Ukraine war. Okay, who did it? The leader of a small online gaming chat group where a trove of classified U.S. intelligence documents leaked over the last few months is a 21-year-old member of the intelligence wing of the Massachusetts Air National Guard. The National Guardsman, whose name is Jake Teixeira, oversaw a private online group named Thug Shaker Central, where about 20 to 30 people, mostly young men and teenagers, came together over a shared love of guns, racist online memes, and video games. Two U.S. officials confirmed that investigators want to talk to Airman Teixeira about the leak of the government documents to the private online group. One official said Airman Teixeira might have information relevant to the investigation. So here is the 21-year-old Air National Guardsman, and if he's the only one with a security clearance, and he's the leader of this online chat group, and it's his account that posted the documents, I don't think it's going to require Sherlock Holmes to crack this case open. More than likely, he's the source. Yes, in America, you are presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law, but I believe it's in his best interest to cooperate with investigators because he's in serious trouble. And all to impress 17-year-olds in a Minecraft chat group. So, yeah, his life is not going to be going well the next couple weeks. So that was the easy story. Now for the difficult one. Horrifying video appears to show a Russian soldier beheading a Ukrainian prisoner of war. And this video first appeared 2 days ago as I was filming my last update video. I pulled up the video but never clicked on it to play it. I wanted to read the reactions from other people first. Here's a couple of them. I can't believe what I just saw. Russian soldiers cutting off the head of a Ukrainian prisoner while he struggles to fight back. I'm lost for words. This is sickening. Do not watch it for your own sake. So this is highly debated. Should you watch the video? Should you share the video? Plenty of good arguments, never to watch it, please don't share it. But there are members of Ukraine's government, like Goncharenko. He's a member of Ukraine's parliament, and he chose to share the video. Same thing with Klitschko. Klitschko has 800,000 followers, and he also chose to share the video on his Twitter page. And this is what Klitschko says. This beheading video is barbarism. Like all terrorists, for Russia, it's not just about committing a crime, but spreading it as far as possible, to spread fear. Russia is only spreading its atrocious face. We defeated fear a long time ago. We will soon defeat Russian barbarism. So I've been staring at this content warning violence for 2 days now, and I've decided I don't want to watch the video. I just don't think I need to put these visual images in my head. And let me read for you what Oz Chatterjee says. He's a freelance journalist and filmmaker. Do not share or watch it. Please leave that to the professionals and war crimes investigators. You have nothing to gain and everything to lose from staring into that abyss. Speaking as someone who was once employed to research footage like this, you will live with those images for the rest of your life. Unless you are being paid to do it, I'd argue that there's no amount of money worth that sacrifice. Just don't do it. If I have learned anything I can share in over 13 years of covering war crimes as a journalist, it's that some footage should simply never be viewed by the public. So it's debatable. What do you want to do? It's a personal choice for everyone watching this video. You have the power to go on Twitter and watch the video for yourself. And if you do, if you've already seen it, I want to share this article with you from Bellingcat. And it's titled, How to Maintain Mental Hygiene as an Open Source Researcher. And I guess as a YouTuber making these clip compilation videos, I'm an open source researcher. I've watched hundreds of videos of Ukrainian and Russian soldiers being killed. Now, I do try and take precautions for myself to not let this, psychologically affect me, but how careful am I being? And this is what the article says. I just want to read a quick highlight of it. Realize that once you put something in your head, it will be there for the rest of your life. Your subconscious will do what it's going to do with it. 5 years from now, 10 years from now, you could have night terrors for watching a video such as this. So there are some things you can do to mitigate the damage. You can watch the video with the sound turned off. That might help dampen the effects. Something you can also do is click and drag on the play bar to kind of skip through it to see how bad it's going to be. Something I do whenever I click the warning to show the video is I squint my eyes to narrow my vision. I then watch the video to see how bad it is, and if it's not that bad, I'll rewatch it with my eyes fully open, but that's something I do when watching drone drop videos or artillery videos. So with Dmitry over at War Translated, I get a lot of clips from him. People have been asking him, what are ordinary Russians saying about this video? Can you go in the comment section for where this video is posted on Telegram and let us know what Russians are saying? And Dmitry says, at this point, 14 months into the war, it's a waste of time. If someone is still not aware, Russia is a savage state with lots of effed in the head Nazi people and their quiet supporters. Only a small fraction of Russians are genuinely adequate. This country promotes criminals to kill foreign people and sets barrier troops so that convicts are unable to retreat. It shells indiscriminately innocent civilians, poisons and murders internally and abroad. Even its street culture is absolutely effed up if you take off the rose-tinted glasses of a tourist. So I think Dmitry is right. 14 months into this war, we all know who the Russian people are. Yes, I do believe there are good Russians, but for the most part, they've fled the country. I have Russian-American friends. I would never hold anything against them for what Vladimir Putin is doing. But everyone's still inside the country, going to their job like every day is normal. This is not normal. And this is who the modern state of Russia is. They're not protesting, they're not rioting, they're not challenging their government. And when you go online and look at their reactions to videos of their soldiers beheading defenseless prisoners of war, what do they have to say? Anton did make a compilation video. I'll link it down below if you can read Russian. But in general, Russians are very supportive of this. They're not horrified. They're not ashamed. They're supporting this war. They write comments like, I watched it 10 times. I felt happiness. So President Zelensky has responded to the video saying that we need to defeat terror. I'll put this video in a pinned comment down below if you want to watch the whole thing, but let me read for you the first 30 seconds. There is something that no one in the world can ignore. How easily these beasts kill. This video, the execution of a Ukrainian captive, the world must see it. This is a video of Russia as it is. What kind of creatures they are, there are no people for them. A son, a brother, a husband, someone's child. Eventually the identity of this Ukrainian soldier will be known, and this is somebody's son, potentially somebody's husband, somebody's brother or father. Those family members forever now are going to have this video frozen in amber on the internet for everyone to see. It's unspeakable. This is a video of Russia trying to make just that the new norm, such a habit of destroying life. This is not an accident. This is not a case earlier. This was the case in Bucha. Thousands of times. Everyone must react. Every leader, don't expect it to be forgotten. No, I don't think Ukraine is ever going to forget or forgive what Russia has done. So what are Ukrainian soldiers saying? And I want to share the translation of this thread from Yara. She's a Ukrainian Marine. And this is what she has to say. Any torture, like a beheading, is a sign of cowardice of the perpetrator. It's a sign of a person's unfitness as a soldier. Most importantly, torture destroys the torturer. He will forever live in fear that the same will be done to him. If you are the one cutting someone's head off, or you're watching someone you serve with do that, then you know you could be next. You know that it could just as easily be done to you by your own forces. The antidote to this is to realize that atrocities should be seen as cowardice, and the agony of an attacker defeated by unrealized goals. Russia is doing this because they're not winning this war. This was supposed to be a 3 to 7 day special limited military operation, and now they're engaged in a quagmire dragging out 14 months. Russia is doing this because their military is incompetent and they can't achieve any of their objectives. It's important to not become like the enemy who commits atrocities, because that's what he's counting on. Russia wants to see Ukraine do the exact same thing in response. He expects we will also cut off heads, and they'll feed it to their zombie population. Such videos are spread on purpose with this goal. So nobody in Russia's government is calling for an investigation. Nobody in Russia's government is looking to recall these soldiers and hold them accountable for war crimes and barbarism. But what the Russian government would love is if Ukrainian soldiers did the exact same thing so they could tell their population, it's not a big deal, both sides are doing it. Multiple sources inside the Wagner Group have claimed that the beheadings of Ukrainian prisoners of war are being ordered by the Nazi Wagner commander Dmitry Utkin. I've not mentioned this guy on the channel before. If you don't know who he is, he's this guy with the Nazi tattoos all over his body. Here's a picture of him in the Kremlin, 2 persons away from President Putin. And Dmitry is the original founder of the Wagner Group. It was named the Wagner Group because Wagner was Hitler's favorite music composer. It was only a couple years later that Prigozhin got involved and took over the group. So this guy is a hardcore Russian neo-Nazi, still involved with the Wagner Group. He's the one more than likely pushing for and advocating these brutal, inhumane tactics. World leaders have done the right thing, and they're comparing Russia to ISIS. Here's the president of the Czech Republic. If the video is authentic, it puts the Russian military on par with ISIS. And I actually think he's wrong. I think Russia is way worse than ISIS. Here's a tweet from Ramstein fella. My parents are Syrian. I have family in Aleppo. I watched most of the videos from the Syrian war, most of the ISIS and Al-Qaeda war crimes. I also watched the videos from Iraq and the mass executions in both countries. Trust me when I say Russia is ISIS on steroids. ISIS didn't have nuclear weapons. Every day on Kremlin state TV, Russia is threatening to nuke the West, nuke major urban cities because they can't get what they want. All they want is to restore the glory of the Russian Empire, expand their borders back to their maximum extent, and subjugate the peoples of close to a dozen countries. So Russia is worse than ISIS. And I don't think I'll ever forget this moment in internet history. I remember this, August 19th, 2014, when the Islamic State beheaded US journalist James Foley and posted it on the internet. And I think in 2014, this was the first time that a video of decent quality of a beheading went viral. It was horrifying. This was a traumatic experience for everyone on the internet, and that was the goal of the Islamic State. But I do want to follow up on ISIS and what happened to these guys. A lot of people didn't catch this, but in August of 22, ISIS fighter behind the brutal beheading of the journalist and the murder of a veteran was sentenced to life in prison. So on the 8th anniversary of the brutal beheading of the journalist James Foley, a federal judge in Virginia sentenced one of the men responsible for his capture and murder to life in prison. Foley's mother said that, "With today's verdict, we will finally have a bit of justice." El-Shafi El-Sheikh, a British ISIS fighter, was a member of a terrorist cell dubbed the ISIS Beatles, owing to their British accents. He was captured in 2018 and indicted in 2020, sentenced to life in prison in 2022. So for the Russian soldiers responsible for this beheading, if they somehow survive this war, they will be found, they will be brought to justice, whether it takes 5 years, 8 years, 15, or 20, eventually Ukraine and the international community is going to get this guy. That's my promise to you all. So what other evil things is Russia currently up to? And bill to allow electronic conscription notices passes. Russian State Duma passes bill to legalize electronic military summons in effort to curb draft evasion. So the Russian State Duma has approved the third and final reading of a bill that legalizes electronic military summons and makes it illegal to ignore them. Under the new legislation, summonses issued through Russia's government service portal will now carry the same weight as draft orders issued by mail or through a person's employer. Electronic summons will legally be considered to have been issued as soon as they appear on a person's government account. So this is the name of the government account that I guess everyone has in Russia. And it's now the responsibility of every Russian man to basically check this account every week to see if they've been conscripted or mobilized. So here is a member of the Russian parliament talking about it, and let me read for you what he says. Interim measures will be introduced for people who evade conscription. If people do not receive or pretend to not receive the summons, they will be obliged to report to the military registration and enlistment office within 2 weeks at the time of the next conscription. If they fail to do so, they will receive a digital notice signed by the head of the commissariat. This notification will contain a ban on leaving the country and a warning of further restrictions. If the conscript fails to appear again after 20 days, this person may be deprived of the right to drive a transport vehicle, sell and buy real estate, register an individual enterprise, etc. So basically, if you're issued a mobilization or conscription notice and you just ignore it, then all of your rights as a Russian citizen will be taken away. Anything related to government services or activity, you're officially excommunicado. You are cut off from being able to get a marriage license, buy real estate, drive your car, probably even use health insurance. So this is the final notice for any Russian man under the age of 60. If you've been on the fence whether or not you should get out, you should probably get out now. This is probably your last opportunity before, in effect, the borders are closed. If you can't go to the Georgian border or the airport in Moscow and get on a flight to Istanbul because your passport won't function, this is Russia's plan to avoid the embarrassment that they experienced 6 months ago with their last round of mobilization. So it's coming. Let's now check in with the front lines, and the city of Bakhmut continues to hold, sort of. When you look at the map, it is apparent that Russia controls a majority of the city, and the Wagner Group is claiming that they've captured 80% of Bakhmut. But 80% is still not the same as capturing the city of Bakhmut. And Ukrainian defenders continue to hold on to this western chunk of the city. And what they're doing is buying time. They're trying to distract the Russians as long as possible as they prepare for their counteroffensive, which will be occurring in a completely different region. So as long as the Russian military is frustrated, unable to capture the entirety of the city, this is protecting other cities and allowing delivery of weapons, training, and preparation for the coming spring counteroffensive. And Russia is doing their best to build up fortifications, especially in the Zaporizhia region. The fortifications will provide a significant obstacle to Ukrainian forces if Russia can man them. But when I look at these fortifications, these trenches they're building, there's no cover, there's no trees. Artillery units and drones can easily pick off any soldiers sitting in these trenches. So we'll see how well their fortifications hold once Ukraine starts pushing. And on Russian state TV, this is getting weird. I keep finding these clips of Russia's top propagandists talking about how incredible the Ukrainian military is, how they've gotten all of this Western equipment and Western training, and they have hundreds of thousands of troops prepared for this spring counteroffensive. They've got loitering munitions like Switchblade 300s and 600s. And what's happening here is that Kremlin state TV is preparing their audience for failure. They're trying to set expectations for Ukraine's spring counteroffensive as high as possible, and Russia's ability to withstand it as low as possible, so their audience isn't disappointed or confused when Russia gets their ass kicked. So, more than likely, the spring counteroffensive will happen in the Zaporizhia region, and Ukraine just has to get to either Melitopol, Berdyansk, or Mariupol in order to cut off the road and rail network supplying all of the Russian soldiers in this western region. If Ukraine can get to the coastline, to the Sea of Azov, then all of these Russian forces are going to retreat back to Crimea just to hold Crimea. That will then become the Russian government's goal. And they're preparing their people for this. A last stand, heroic defense of Crimea. So here's Olga, once again trying to get the Russian people to freak out or worry about the possibility of Russia losing Crimea.
Украина рассказала, что будет с Крымом и Донбассом в случае, упаси Господь, их захвата. Вслед за Даниловым планы по дерусификации, есть такие планы, дерусификации Крыма и Донбасса, начал строить советник офиса украинского президента Михаил Подоляк. Он пообещал, что в случае возвращения территорий, этого, естественно, не случится, но важно понимать. Жителей Крыма ждет, загибаем пальцы, запрет русского языка, русской культуры, получивших российский...
Is a Crimea without Russia even still Crimea? That's the argument that they're going to make. And what's happening here is that since 2014, I think the estimate is that 800,000 Russian citizens have moved to Crimea, moved to a territory that was being illegally occupied. So if Ukraine retakes or liberates Crimea, those 800,000 people have no legal right to be there. They've got to go back to Russia. So yes, there will be mass deportations of Russian citizens who entered Crimea illegally. And as far as de-Russification, oh heck yeah, after this war, that's going to happen. I think there will become a surge in popularity for the learning the Ukrainian language in eastern Ukraine. In addition, I also think something Ukraine might eventually do is ditch the Cyrillic alphabet and instead use their language with the Latin-based alphabet. This would help with business operations and tourism once Ukraine becomes a member of the EU, as well as distancing them from Russia so that Russians don't get confused that Ukraine is part of Russia. All right, final couple feel-good clips. I feel like we all need them. The first one is of an owl that Ukrainian defenders rescued in the city of Bakhmut.
Взяли прибор ночного видения. Снимаем от лески, от тура. Освобождаем птичку на воду. Запуталась на дереве, висела. Да.
Пантелейспазм.
Пантелейспазм, да. А что, стреляет, а надо что-то ж делать. В общем, скоро полетит.
Вот наша новая красота. Да?
You can hear all of the bombs and artillery going off in the background, and these defenders are taking the time to rescue this owl. Final clip I have for you is some kind of kids coach returning from Bakhmut to see his students, probably for the first time in months. That's all for this update video. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. If you found this video informative, give me a thumbs up. Best way to support the channel. Comments and questions, let me know down below. I love hearing from you guys. Till the next video, keep defending the truth, keep defending democracy.